Have you ever noticed that the more desperately you try to hold on to something, the more it slips through your fingers? Like trying to grasp water. The tighter you squeeze, the less you have. That's not a coincidence, you see. That's the universe trying to tell you something rather important. And
Dat
that's
is wel
true.
wel understand?
Have you ever realized that the more you try to quiet your thoughts, the more your mind acts like a pond that someone keeps throwing rocks into? Every time you try to find peace, it's like tossing another stone into the water. What an interesting contradiction we've built for ourselves. You know, it's pretty interesting how we handle worry and stress in today's world. We treat it like something that needs to be removed, pushed down, or treated with medicine, as if it's some kind of flaw in how we're built. But what if we've been thinking about this the wrong way the whole time? Here's something to think about. Your stress and worry aren't some outside force that's invaded your body. They're actually a part of you, trying to communicate in a way you might not have learned to understand yet. The nervous feeling in your stomach, the thoughts that won't slow down, the tight feeling in your chest, these aren't your enemies. They're like messengers bringing you information. Just like physical pain warns you not to touch something hot, these feelings serve a purpose. But here's the fascinating part. The worry itself isn't what's causing the problem. The real issue is how we relate to it. We've learned to think that these uncomfortable feelings shouldn't exist, that they mean we failed somehow. So we fight back. We push against them. We try to make them disappear. And when we resist like this, we actually make the thing we're trying to escape even stronger. What might happen if you stopped running away, just for one moment? What if you turned around and looked at this messenger? Not with fear, but with interest and curiosity. Oh, there you are again. What message are you bringing me this time? You see, worry often shows up when we're disconnected from ourselves, from this present moment, from how reality actually works. It's a warning sign that we're stuck in a story about what could happen instead of what's actually happening right now. And when you look at it this way, worry can become our best teacher, but only if we listen instead of running away. The first move toward finding inner peace isn't getting rid of worry, it's actually welcoming it. Like you might welcome a challenging friend who, even though they're difficult, has something valuable to tell you. Isn't it interesting how much of our stress comes from desperately trying to control everything around us? We make plans, we stress, we scheme, we organize, all in a brave attempt to make life follow our exact instructions. Yet life keeps doing whatever it wants to do, doesn't it? You see, we're stuck in an amazing contradiction. The things we want to control the most are exactly the things that can't be controlled. We want to make sure our loved ones stay safe forever, that our future is guaranteed, that everyone sees us exactly how we want to be seen. But these things are like trying to hold water in your hands without a cup. The harder you squeeze, the more it escapes. And here's what's truly absurd about all of this. The same systems in our brain that developed to keep us safe and help us control our surroundings now cause us pain in a world where we're mostly safe from physical danger, but where uncertainty is the only sure thing. Have you ever noticed that the more desperately you try to hold on to something, the more it slips through your fingers, like trying to grasp water? The tighter you squeeze, the less you have. That's not a coincidence, you see. That's the universe trying to tell you something rather important. What if instead of trying to control the river, we learn to ride along with it? What if instead of fighting uncertainty, we built a better relationship with it? Not as something we need to beat, but as the actual texture of being alive. There's freedom that arrives when you understand that worry usually grows in the space between how the world actually is and how you think it should be. And maybe the road to inner peace isn't about closing that gap through control, but about accepting the world and yourself exactly as they are. This doesn't mean you give up or become lazy. Far from it. It means engaging with life from a place of acceptance instead of fighting against it. And strangely enough, when we stop trying to control everything, we often discover we have way more influence than we ever imagined. Now, here's something pretty strange to consider. Where exactly is the line between your mind and everything else around you. We usually think of our minds as being safely tucked inside our heads, looking out at a separate reality. But is that actually true? You see, what we call worry is often described as something happening inside our minds in response to something outside in the world. But when you look carefully, this separation starts to blur in really interesting ways. Think about this. You feel worried about losing your job? Is that worry inside you, or is it in the relationship between you and your workplace? You stress about what other people think of you. Is that worry inside your head, or does it exist in the space between you and other people? The common wisdom tells us that the problem is in our thinking, that we need to change our thoughts to feel better. But what if this whole setup is a kind of illusion? What if your mind isn't a separate thing that can be fixed all by itself? The Chinese thinker Zhang once asked, "Am I a man dreaming I'm a butterfly, or a butterfly dreaming I'm a man?" It's a playful question, but it points to something deep. The boundaries we assume are solid might not be as real as they seem. Your mind isn't just in your head, it's in your body, in your surroundings, in your relationships, in the air you breathe, and the food you eat. The worry you feel isn't only yours, it's also a result of the culture you live in, the economy you're part of, the planet you call home. And so maybe the first step toward finding calm isn't retreating deeper into the mind to fix it, but recognizing that the mind reaches beyond what we normally think of as its limits. When you start to sense this interconnectedness, this web of mutual influence, something pretty amazing happens. The tight knot of worry begins to loosen, not because you've defeated it, but because you've expanded the context in which it exists. The mind that feels separate and under attack is the worry mind. The mind that recognizes its basic connectedness with everything is the mind that starts to find peace. You know, there's something really strange about how we experience ourselves in this world. From the moment we're born, we're taught to believe in a story. The story of me as a separate self, a little island of awareness in a huge sea of everything else. And this belief in being separate is maybe the biggest source of our worry. Think about it. When you're anxious, what are you really anxious about? Isn't it always in some way about what happens to this separate self? Will I succeed or fail? Will I be loved or pushed away? Will I live or die? All of these worries assume this basic idea that you are a thing separate from other things, trying to navigate your way through a world that is not you. But what if this entire setup is a kind of amazing illusion? What if, like the mystics and wise teachers have been telling us for hundreds of years, this feeling of being a separate self is more like a useful story than the ultimate truth? Let me give you a different way to see this. You are not in the world. You are an expression of the world. Just like a wave is not in the ocean, but is what the ocean is doing at that specific spot. You are what the whole universe is doing at the place called here and now. When you start to sense this, not as just an idea, but as a real experience, something amazing happens to anxiety. It doesn't vanish completely, but it starts to lose its power. Because if you're not separate from everything else, then there's nothing you ultimately need to protect, nothing you ultimately need to fear losing. This doesn't mean you become uncaring about what happens to this specific body and mind. Not at all. It means you hold those experiences in a bigger context, one that isn't built on the shaky foundation of being separate. The great joke is that what we're all desperately looking for, this sense of connection, of belonging, of being at home in the universe, isn't something we need to achieve. It's what we are when we stop believing we are something else. And in that understanding, there's a calm that doesn't come and go with what's happening around us. A calm that's part of the ground of being itself. Have you ever watched a stream flowing around rocks? It doesn't fight the obstacles in its way. It simply flows around them with effortless grace. Water doesn't struggle against gravity. It surrenders to it completely. And in that surrender, it finds its power, its path, its peace. We humans, though, We are quite different, aren't we? We spend huge amounts of energy fighting against the flow of life. Something happens that we don't like, and immediately we're in fighting mode. This shouldn't be happening. I don't want this. I can't accept this. And in that resistance, anxiety is born. It's like we're swimming against the current, wearing ourselves out against the flow of reality. And then we wonder why we feel so tired, so stressed, so anxious all the time. Now, I'm not saying you should become a doormat, passively accepting whatever comes your way. That's misunderstanding what I mean. I'm talking about something much more subtle and powerful. What would happen if, when anxiety shows up, you stopped fighting it? If instead of tensing up against it, trying to push it away, analyzing it, or drowning it out with distractions, you simply let it be there. Not because you like it or want it, but because it's already there. This is what the Taoists call Wu Wei, non-doing or non-forcing. It's the art of allowing things to be as they are while still fully participating in life. It's swimming with the river instead of against it. You see, the interesting paradox is that when we accept ourselves as we are, admit our anxiety, our fear, our discomfort, we create the conditions for natural change to happen. It's only when we stop trying to force ourselves to be calm that real calm has any chance of showing up. Think of it like trying to fall asleep. The harder you try to force yourself to sleep, the more awake you become. It's only when you surrender to being awake that sleep can find you. Inner calm works the same way. It isn't achieved through effort. It's what remains when effort stops. It's not something you do. It's what you are when you stop doing. Now, here's something really interesting to consider. Where exactly is your attention right now? Is it on these words? On a feeling in your body? On a worry about something that happened earlier today? On a plan for tomorrow? Most of us go through life with our attention scattered in 1,000 directions, pulled by memories, fantasies, plans, and worries, rarely fully present with what's actually happening. And in this scattered state, anxiety grows strong. But there's a special relationship between where we place our attention and how we feel. When attention is fully in the present moment, not grabbing at the past or reaching for the future, anxiety has nowhere to grow. It's like trying to plant a seed in empty space. This is the great secret that meditators and spiritual practitioners have known for hundreds of years. Presence is naturally peaceful. Not because the present moment is always pleasant. It certainly isn't. But because presence itself has a quality of openness, of allowing, of non-resistance. Yet, here's the paradox. The moment you try to force yourself to be present, to concentrate, to focus, you create a subtle form of inner conflict. You're using effort to chase something that is only available when effort stops. So what's the way through this paradox? It's what I like to call the dance between attention and surrender. You gently bring your attention to the present moment, to your breath, to sensations in your body, to the sounds around you, and then you let go. You don't grab at the experience, you don't try to hold on to it or make it better. You simply notice what's here and allow it to be as it is. It's like holding a butterfly. Grip too tightly and you crush it. Don't extend your hand at all and it never lands. But if you hold your palm open, paying attention yet not grasping, you create the conditions for a moment of connection. In this dance between attention and surrender, you discover something remarkable. That calm isn't something you achieve through effort, but something you fall into when you stop trying so hard. It's always available like the blue sky behind the clouds. If only we would stop stirring up the mental weather. Isn't it interesting how our very search for peace often becomes the thing that disturbs our peace? We read books about finding calm, download meditation apps, go to retreats, practice breathing techniques, all with this underlying feeling that we need to get somewhere other than where we are. And in this constant reaching, this never-ending search for some future state of calm, we miss something pretty obvious. The searching itself is a form of restlessness. Think about it. When you're anxiously chasing calm, you're subtly telling yourself, I'm not okay as I am right now. I need to be different. This experience needs to be different. And that very attitude creates a quiet but constant background of dissatisfaction, of unease, of anxiety. It's like trying to smooth out ripples in water by hitting them with your hand. The very attempt creates more of the disturbance you're trying to stop. I'm reminded of a Zen story. A student asks the master, how do I enter the path to peace? The master replies, do you hear the stream? The student listens and says, yes. The master says, enter there. What's the point of this little exchange? The master is pointing out that peace isn't something to be gained through hard work. It's already here in the simple sounds of the stream, in the feeling of your breath, in the sensations of your body sitting or standing where you are.
The great cosmic joke is that what we're looking for is not somewhere else. It's not in some future achievement or state, it's in the very fabric of our present experience. If only we would stop missing it in our desperate search for something better.
This doesn't mean we shouldn't take practical steps to fix real problems in our lives. Of course we should. But there's a world of difference between responding skillfully to life's challenges and being caught in a neurotic chase of some imagined future state of perfect calm. The first comes from a place of basic okayness with what is. The second comes from a place of resistance to what is. And that resistance, that gap between what is and what we think should be, is where anxiety makes its home. Have you ever noticed the space between your thoughts? It's easy to miss because we're so captivated by the content of thinking. The endless internal commentary, the planning, remembering, worrying, fantasizing. But if you pay very close attention, you might notice little gaps, little spaces of silence between one thought and the next. Most of us identify completely with the stream of thinking. We believe we are our thoughts. I think, therefore I am, as Descartes famously said. But what if that's not quite accurate? What if the real you isn't the thinking, but the awareness in which thinking happens? Consider this. Thoughts come and go like clouds in the sky. But the sky itself, the open, clear space of awareness, remains unchanged. Clouds don't stay in the sky, they appear in it, move across it, and dissolve back into it. But the sky itself is untouched. In the same way, anxiety, fear, worry, these are like weather patterns moving through the open space of your consciousness. They appear, they move, they dissolve, but the consciousness itself, that which is aware of the anxiety, remains untouched. Now, this isn't just a clever comparison. It's pointing to something you can verify directly in your own experience. Right now, as you're listening to these words, notice that there's an awareness of the sounds, of sensations in your body, of any emotions that might be present. That awareness itself, can you find any anxiety in it? Or is anxiety something that appears within this open space of awareness? When we begin to recognize ourselves as this open, spacious awareness rather than as the particular contents that appear within it, something remarkable happens. We discover a dimension of our being that is naturally peaceful, naturally free, naturally whole. Not because it has achieved some ideal state, but because it was never broken to begin with. This isn't some mysterious state accessible only to monks in caves. It's what you are right now beneath the story of being a separate self who needs to get somewhere other than here. The space between thoughts isn't empty in the sense of being nothing. It's empty in the sense of being full of potential, full of life, full of a peace that doesn't depend on circumstances being a particular way. Have you ever noticed that the more desperately you try to hold on to something, the more it slips through your fingers, like trying to grasp water? The tighter you squeeze, the less you have. That's not a coincidence, you see. That's the universe trying to tell you something rather important. You know, it's quite amusing how seriously we take ourselves. Here we are, on a tiny speck of dust, whirling around a mediocre star in one of billions of galaxies, and yet we believe we can control things. There's a deep wisdom in this natural process that our anxious minds have forgotten. The leaf doesn't resist its fate, it doesn't cling desperately to the branch, fighting against the changing seasons. It doesn't worry about what will happen when it falls, or compare itself to other leaves that haven't started to change yet. No, the leaf simply participates in the rhythm of nature, growing when it's time to grow, letting go when it's time to let go. And in that surrender to the natural order of things, there's a kind of grace, a kind of peace that our anxiety filled human minds rarely know. You see, so much of our anxiety comes from our resistance to the basic nature of existence, that everything changes, that nothing lasts forever, that we are not separate from or in control of the vast process of life. We cling to youth, to health, to relationships, to possessions, to identities, all the while knowing somewhere deep down that everything we grab at will eventually slip through our fingers. And it's this desperate clinging, this resistance to the natural flow of impermanence that creates so much of our suffering. What would happen if we learned from the leaf? If we recognized that we too are part of this dance of emergence and dissolution, this endless cycle of form arising from formlessness and returning to it again? I'm not suggesting that you should become indifferent to life or passive in the face of things that can be changed. Not at all. But there's a huge difference between engaged participation in life and the kind of white-knuckled control that comes from fear. The leaf doesn't throw itself off the branch too early. It doesn't rush the process or try to avoid it. It simply allows autumn to do what autumn does. And in that allowing, there's a wisdom and a peace that our clever, controlling minds would do well to remember. We are not just separate selves battling against an uncaring universe. We are expressions of the universe itself, like waves on the ocean, rising and falling with the greater rhythms of existence. There's a strange disease that affects almost all of us in the modern world. I call it the disease of becoming. It's a constant feeling that we are not quite there yet, not quite complete, not quite good enough, that we need to become something other than what we already are. We are constantly in this state of psychological time, living for some future moment when everything will finally be okay. When I get that promotion, when I find the right partner, when I finally overcome my anxiety, then I'll be happy, then I'll be at peace. But that future moment never actually comes, does it? Because when we get what we think we want, we immediately find something else to strive for, something else to become. It's like drinking salt water to satisfy your thirst. The more you drink, the thirstier you get. And so we find ourselves in this never-ending state of becoming, never fully arriving, never fully being here. And in this gap between what we are and what we think we should be, anxiety grows strong. Now, I'm not saying that you should have no goals, no aspirations, no desire for change or growth. That would be ridiculous. But there's a huge difference between pursuing goals from a place of wholeness versus pursuing them from a place of lack. When action comes from the sense that something is fundamentally missing or wrong with you as you are right now, it carries with it a quality of strain, of effort, of anxiety. But when action comes from a recognition of your inherent completeness, it has a different quality altogether, a quality of ease, of flow, of natural unfolding. This is what I mean by the freedom of being versus the trap of becoming. Being doesn't mean staying stuck. It means full, engaged presence with what is, from which authentic action naturally emerges. Think of a great artist at work or an athlete in the zone. There's intense activity, yes, but it's not driven by some neurotic need to become something other than what they are. It's an expression of what they already are, flowing outward into form.
This is available to all of us in every moment. The peace we're seeking isn't waiting for us in some imagined future when we finally become good enough. It's available right now in the simple recognition of what we already are.
This boundless, beginningless awareness in which the entire dance of life is happening. In this recognition, anxiety doesn't disappear entirely. It still arises as part of the human experience, but it no longer defines us. It's just another wave on the ocean of awareness, arising and passing away, while we remain as the ocean itself, vast, deep, and fundamentally at peace. After exploring all these dimensions of anxiety and inner calm, we might be tempted to walk away with some neat conclusion, some formula or technique that will finally solve the problem of human suffering. But that would miss the point entirely, wouldn't it? The truth is both simpler and more profound than any conclusion I could offer. This moment, this very experience you're having right now, contains within it everything you've been searching for. Not because it's particularly special or pleasant, but because it's what's real. And in Nartica, worthy of chosen berries, rather than resistance, has its own inherent peace. The great paradox is that what we're most desperately seeking, this sense of wholeness, of belonging, of being at home in the universe, isn't something we need to achieve or become. It's what we already are when we stop believing that we're something else. So perhaps the path to inner calm isn't a path at all. Perhaps it's more like a clearing away, a letting go of all the ideas and strategies that keep us from recognizing what has been here all along. This boundless awareness in which the entire dance of life, including anxiety, is happening. And in that recognition, we don't become something new. We simply remember what we've always been, like the wave remembering it's the ocean, like the leaf remembering it's the tree, like the anxious human remembering they are the universe itself, taking the shape of a person for a brief and precious moment. If these words have resonated somewhere deep within you, perhaps it's not because I've told you something new, but because I've reminded you of something you've always known, a knowing that lives in your bones, in the silence between your thoughts, in the space where you and the universe are not two separate things. Share this perspective if you feel moved to do so, but remember, no one else can awaken to this truth for you. The invitation is always here in each moment to recognize the freedom and peace that is your birthright. Not as something to attain, but as the very nature of what you already are.